Yo, what up? It's your boy, Deconverted Man, in the house, doing a react video to a reaction video of reaction video react. I'm reacting. So is Pikachu. Oh, Pikachu. Click the video, smash that like and sub and PayPal and send me money and do all the things. All right, here we go. Without any further delay, let's check out the video that I'm going to react to.
My team got me some TikTok videos that include challenges to the Christian faith. You're gonna get to witness for the first time on my YouTube channel some of my live responses. Let's go with the first one.
If I tell my wife, if you don't love me, I'm going to set you on fire, am I a loving, good husband?
If you set her on fire, then you never loved her to begin with.
And if God sends us to hell, he never loved us to begin with.
Wow, I admit, that was a great soundbite. Mic drop moment where you think, oh my goodness, God is completely immoral. Well, first off, hell in the Bible is not about God setting us on fire. Metaphors.
It's not? Thought it was. I mean, well, that's what we're told. I mean, a lake of fire, right? Of course, that's in Revelation. Maybe it's talking about something else. Maybe that's not hell. Where is hell in the Bible anyways? Like, can you give me any verses on hell? I know people talk about hell, but where is hell in the Bible? Like, where do you find it? Because I want to know what it says. Because I know people say that it's fire or brimstone. But it's also said to be a separation from God. So what is it? What verses are you getting this information from? Why is it that Christians don't include these Bible verses? I mean, I'm going to be like, your Bible, whatever, I don't care. But in this case, I kind of would like to know what the Bible actually says about this place of eternal damnation, where you're separated from God, who is everywhere. So I'm not sure how you can be separated from a thing that's everywhere. But apparently it's not about fire. Well, that's good. I don't know how you know that, but all right. What is it about?
Like fire and metaphors like darkness are about loss and about judgment. So,
oh, okay. So they're metaphors. So how do you know when something in the Bible is a metaphor and when it's supposed to be taken literally? What system do you use to determine between the two? So I can know when I read the Bible what things I'm supposed to take literally or metaphorically. Is Jesus' death literal or metaphorical? I don't know. Let me know. How do I do that?
well, I would agree that setting a wife on fire is obviously completely immoral, but I don't think that's parallel to the biblical understanding of hell.
Really? Okay, so what's the biblical understanding of hell backed by biblical verses? Being a Christian, of course, you understand that as a person that promotes or talks about Christianity, if you can't show that something is actually biblical by citing the verse, then you're a false prophet, which only matters to the Christians, not to the skeptic, which I am. But I'm going to point out the fact that you might be a false prophet if you're not going to use the scriptures.
See, he's comparing a human relationship, what you might say is horizontal, with a vertical relationship with God. These are completely different.
I don't know. I mean, horizontal relationships are different than vertical relationships, but oh, no, he's not talking about vertical What is he talking? What do you mean horizontal and vertical? What does that even mean? What is a vertical relationship? What is that? I'm going to need some definition. I've never heard of that concept before. So I'm sure you're going to say what it is and explain how they're different, right? You're not going to just say that they're different and not provide any description on how they're different, how you know they're different, what they are, where you got the information from, and where these ideas are generated from, right? You're not just going to assert something without any sort of argument to back it up, are you?
Might come a point where you separate from a spouse. Now, think about it. This person completely ignores you and denies you and acts like you don't exist.
Okay. So if somebody ignores you or acts like you don't exist, like, I don't know, like you're talking to somebody, you writing them letters, and they never say anything back to you, that's a bad relationship that you should leave. That's good advice. I wonder if that's consistent for vertical relationships as well as horizontal ones. Or is the vertical relationship somehow different than the horizontal one? It's perfectly fine in the vertical one to set people on fire, perhaps. Perhaps the vertical relationship allows you to not speak back to the person who's speaking to you, that you can remain utterly silent. And unlike the horizontal relationship, the vertical relationship, you continue, even though you never hear anything back when you speak to the vertical relationship. Whereas in a human relationship, when you talk to somebody, if they don't talk back, probably ending that relationship is a good idea. In fact, is it really even a relationship if they never speak to you, no matter what you say to them, how many letters you write to them, etc.? I don't think that that's a relationship at all. But the vertical one must be very different because, I mean, they can't be similar at all, right? Like, because if you're saying that it's a good idea to separate from somebody that doesn't talk to you, I would agree. But of course, you're going to have to make a distinction for that vertical relationship, that that's a special category where the rules don't apply, which means why not set the person on fire if it's a vertical relationship?
At some point, many people would say it's probably time to move on and end that relationship. Well, that's true with a spouse. Seems to me that might also be true with God. If God wants to be in a relationship with us and has reached out, and yet people keep denying and rejecting him, at some point it might make sense for this God to say, fine, you don't want to have a relationship with me. The reality.
So you didn't seem to make the distinction I thought you were going to make between the horizontal and vertical relationship. Not only did you not define what they are or how they're different, give any citations on where you got the idea of horizontal and vertical relationship from, if it's biblical or did you just make it up? Is it from sort of philosophy, psychology? Where's this idea? Is it just your idea that you came up with? I don't know. But at any rate, you didn't provide us with that. So that's a problem. But now this other problem is you've made an analogy between the human relationships that we have and the relationship that supposedly we're supposed to have with God. And you said that God is reaching out to us. In what way, shape, or form? Because I don't observe that. I'm looking. Hello? What? There's a God apparently reaching out for me? In what way? I don't hear it. I don't see it. I don't detect it in any way, shape, or form. You can say that it's reaching out to me all you want. You can say that your holy book says that your God is reaching out to me. But unless I see evidence of that myself, then I have no choice but to say no. I'm not rejecting anything because there's nothing to reject. There's no evidential support for the idea that I'm being offered any relationship in the first place. What's more, why is it all one-sided? God wants me in a relationship. Okay, fine. Hi, God. Hello? Oh, God's not saying anything back. That's not a relationship anymore then. If God is able to speak, it's not speaking to me. So why would I want to be in a relationship with a entity or person or anything, whatever, that does not speak back to me when I speak out loud to it? Therefore, it would be a bad relationship at best. I'm not rejecting God because God hasn't given me anything to accept or to reject. I hear nothing from it. No matter how many times I say hi, God never says hi back. So if it's at all analogous to a human relationship, then I don't have, and it's impossible to have, a relationship with a God that does not communicate with me in a way that I can recognize. Now, you might say, well, God wrote this Bible or that Bible, but any religion and every religion can make that claim. In fact, non-religions can make that claim. There's a book called The Lobsterist that makes all sorts of claims. Maybe you should read that one. Whee! Okay, but that's it. It's just a claim. You need to demonstrably demonstrate that there is a God that's offering me anything in the first place. At that point, I'd still have to ask why God isn't doing it. If God wants a relationship so badly with me, it doesn't appear to be making any sort of effort on its own. It's relying solely on the written words in some book that I might be skeptical about. Well, why would you do that, God? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I can't tell you apart from all the other gods that are out there that are made up, that the Christian would agree are made up. So that's a problem. I can't have a relationship with that. But I'm not rejecting it if it had the same sort of relationship with me that other humans did, then I could have a relationship with it. If I said, hey, God, and it was like, hey, deconverted man, I'm like, okay, cool, let's talk. Let's get to know each other. But the only way that you can find out anything about any God is to read some holy book or listen to what somebody has to say about God, or just make up what you think God is like. And isn't all of those things a problem if there really is a God? It still isn't appearing to reach out in any way, shape, or form like a human would to have a relationship with us. So why would we have a relationship then?
Reality is, breaking a relationship with a human being horizontally is very different than breaking a relationship with God, the very one who gives us breath, the one who gives us life, the one who makes our existence possible. So God's going.
Well, all of those are assertions, but even if it's the case that God is giving me breath and life, etc., if I have no evidence of that, then I can't accept that those are things. If I did have evidence, that's still not a relationship, though. That you are giving me the ability to keep living is nice of you, and I appreciate it, and I might even thank you. But if I hear nothing back, it's going to be a one-time deal. I'm going to say thanks once, and that's it, because you didn't say you're welcome. So I'm not going to keep thanking you for allowing me to keep on breathing and existing. I mean, if you want to stop doing that, you're free to do it. I said thank you. You didn't respond, so I guess you didn't care.
To allow us to reject him, but then feel the full weight of what rejecting him relationally is actually like.
And that's a one-way relationship, isn't it? Well, why doesn't God feel what it is to reject me? He's rejecting me. God is rejecting me by not doing anything that I would expect any other being to do who wants a relationship with me. Well, then God should feel my feelings about being rejected. But I can't do anything to God because it's God, right? I don't have that sort of power over it. So this seems like God is throwing some sort of temper tantrum. You don't like me. Meh. Okay, well, I don't like you because you never said hi to me. So I don't not like you. I don't like you. I don't have any feelings about you. Well, but now you have to go to hell. Why? Because you didn't accept me. Well, stop being such a baby. I thought you're God. What do you need me to accept you for or have a relationship with you for? Why do you care? And then if you do care, then and you know what I am like as a person, which is another thing that's added on to what God can do apparently by Christians at times, although he hasn't suggested that here. I think it's implied, but regardless. So Why is God not giving me the same sort of thing that I have from everyone else? Because God is vertical, right? I mean, that would, but then that still doesn't explain why it's not like that. So it's completely one-sided. If I, quote, reject, end quote, God, even though I'm not rejecting God because I have nothing to reject, there is nothing being presented that I would see as evidence for a thing called God. So there isn't any point that I am rejecting because there isn't anything for me to reject. God didn't say, hi, shake my hand, hey, how's it going, deconverted man? And I say, screw you, and walk away. That didn't happen. That hasn't happened. It's never happened. So I'm not rejecting it. But because I don't believe in God, which is a rejection, it's not a rejection, it's a non-belief because I don't have any evidence of it, that God's going to put me into hell, whatever that is, whatever that's like. It doesn't seem to be pleasant, but it's the consequence of not accepting God. Why? That's a God problem. So God is not good enough to say, hey, I recognize that you're a human. I made you after all, and I understand why you're not accepting me the way that I am. And I totally get it. Do you want anything to do with me? This is what I'm like. Well, he could do that now, but he won't because reasons. Because you need to believe now in this life, not later. Not when you finally get to meet God face to face. It's too late then, which makes it seem more like it isn't about God or the afterlife or punishment or consequences. It is fully about trying to get people to believe actively here and now when it matters most. But why would you do that? Well, to get them into church, where they will put some money on a little plate so that you can collect it. Now, that's cynical, but yeah, that's a possible reason that you would do it. But many people don't go to church. True. But they still then have a belief in God, and that exerts a type of control over people, and that can be very useful to wield in different ways. If you have control over people, you can tell them what to do, and they'll do it. Hey, your God doesn't want you to do X, Y, and Z. You're going to vote certain ways. You're going to behave in certain ways. That's powerful. Now, you don't have any evidence that God wants anything from you, but you've been told that. You've come to believe it here and now because here and now is what matters. Once you're dead and you see God, it's too late. Well, because when you're dead, you're dead. And whatever, if anything happens after that, who cares? You're not around here for us to manipulate and control and do things that we want you to do. And if you don't think that people aren't using that in some way, shape, or form, well, I don't know what to tell you, but you should, come on, open your eyes. Obviously, that's what religion is all about. It's all about control and authority. That's what it is. It's living by a system. Some of it's traditional. Some of it is symbolic. But nonetheless, it is a set of rules and guidelines for how to live your life. Now, some religions can be benign or good, and some can be pretty darn bad. And then, of course, there's cults, which is like a religion where the leader says, it's time to kill yourself. And you go, okay, well, sure, because you're right. You're the one that knows about God. And, remember Heaven's Gate? Hey, there's a comet coming. If we kill ourselves, we get to go through the gate and get to heaven. Now, what if they were right? What if they were right? We all missed the boat. We missed the ticket to heaven. We all missed it. They got it because that was actually God, and that's actually how it worked. Well, that's not fair, but God gets to decide what to do with reality because it's God. And whether we like it or not doesn't matter. But what we should do is be able to say, hey, now, listen. God is sending the person to hell. No matter how you frame it, God made the system. God made the humans, he made the heaven, he made the hell, he made all the stuff, and God did it knowing what God was like. And if God knew that it was a whiny, crying baby that needed our love and affection, then it could have set up a far more fair system, unless God is completely unfair, which would be then something that you should admit to. But for whatever reason, Christian apologists always assert that God is loving and good. But it doesn't appear to be loving and good because it's sending people to hell. And yes, it is sending them to hell. They are not sending themselves. They do not choose that. I do not choose to not believe. I have to not believe because of the lack of evidence for your God or any God for that matter. But setting aside all those problems, it's different because vertical is different than horizontal.
Trying to
raise your hand if you've ever heard as a former Christian that Charles Darwin is of the devil. It's not that Christians can't be smart, it's that their ideology produces an unopened mind. That fear of hell creates thought-terminating beliefs. Like, Charles Darwin is of the devil, evolution is of the devil. Everything that doesn't conform to my preconceived notions about the world is of the devil.
I don't actually disagree with you. There is a tendency among many Christians to do this. And we gotta stop. If Christianity is actually true, we have nothing to be afraid of by tough ideas. But with that said, since this is on Darwin and science and faith and smart Christians, I think we also have to realize that some of the smartest people who lived were not only not stifled by their faith, but it was actually a faith that encouraged them to do good science. People like Galileo and Kepler and Newton and some of the greatest scientific pioneers.
If you're someone who thinks that
Okay, good take there. I don't really have any objections, but I'm going to mention stuff anyways, like the Catholic Church. What they do to Galileo exactly? Do you guys know? Do I need to tell you? Or maybe I'll let you find out for yourself if you don't know already. But if you know, you know. So a lot of times the people that were all about trying to figure out things did figure it out and say, well, God did it. And there were certain things that even those scientists at the time didn't understand, they might attribute to God because they couldn't figure it out. He mentioned one of their names. And again, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you'll have to look them up and find out. Just because I want you to have homework and I don't feel like looking it up right now. I'm reacting to a video. I don't have time to look up stuff and support my own stuff. I'm only here to complain about the fact that he's not supporting his stuff. See, it's okay when I do it because it's a vertical relationship. Wait, what?
a valid argument for God is gesturing vaguely at everything in the universe and saying, so you just think this all came from nothing? Please watch this video. I am begging you to watch this. The first issue with this argument is that it is a God of the gaps argument. It is a gap in human knowledge. We do not know for sure what kicked off the whole entire universe. However, historically speaking, putting God into a gap where humans lacked knowledge has been proven to not be very good for your God. Because as human knowledge expands, the gaps where you've been putting your God are getting smaller and smaller.
All right, I got to admit, when I first heard this, I thought, all right, this guy is going to bring his A game. I better brace myself because I think the beginning of the universe is one good piece of evidence for a beginner. And then he defaulted back into the same old arguments that have been
A beginning is an indicator of a beginner. Please rise above this stupid sort of mentality. Why do apologists do this? Reality requires a realtor. You might as well say that. It doesn't sound smart, and it isn't smart because a beginning doesn't infer anything other than it began. That's it. It doesn't require a beginner to have a beginning. That's just dumb. That's not how things really work. Oh. All right. So, and if you actually, looked at science, we don't know if there's a beginning to the universe. And in fact, there might not have been. And it seems like there's more and more science indicating that all the ideas of a beginning universe are flawed in some way, shape, or form. That what we call universe, even if we had it be a singularity, that all the things that are not the singularity are still the universe. It's expanding into itself. In that sense, then the sum total reality is that there's always been a universe, because everything is labeled a universe. Maybe we need a different label for the stuff that's around here, the space that singularity is expanding into, other than universe, but apparently we don't have that label yet. And many theories and ideas and hypotheses exist for how it all came to be, and scientists don't seem to have a consensus on it. But there's a number of scientists that suggest that you don't need a beginning, and that there wasn't one. And in fact, that beginnings don't make sense when you don't have a time to have a beginning in the first place. So all of that should be counterfactuals to your idea of a beginning in the first place if you actually cared about science. But if you instead rely upon the idea that there has to be a beginning, because then that means there's a beginner, then all you're doing is asserting a God into the gaps of your knowledge, which is what he's trying to do. Also, I strongly suspect that these are extraordinarily cherry-picked things that would be easy to knock down, rather than going after the more difficult technical arguments. Because, of course, they would be. Why would you pick something easy, right? I'm trying to find the thing on science that I just had seen a while ago. What was it? Universe something. I know I'm sub to it. Well, whatever. I'll find it later and I'll put it in the description.
Responded to for decades, namely God of the gaps. The argument from cosmology is not, we don't know how the universe began, therefore it must be God. That's not the argument. If Christians have made that, we need to formulate it differently. Rather, it begins with a recognition that the universe is finite. Time, matter, and space is not infinite, but finite, which raises the question, what's the best explanation? Not certain explanation, what's the best explanation for the origin of the universe?
It's still an appeal to a lack of information and knowledge. It's an appeal to ignorance and or personal incredulity. There is no, quote, best explanation, not in that sense. But if we're going to go with explanations, then let's examine that a little bit deeply, shall we? You have all the different science that has a lot of different things to say about the matter. And the fact is, we just don't really seem to know right now. There's no consensus on cosmology as far as the origin of the universe goes, or anything about that stuff. So it's a big, giant question mark. But in order to have an actual thing be any sort of explanation, that thing has to be proven to be a thing in the first place. Otherwise, it's not an explanation at all. It's an assertion. And if you don't have any support for your assertion, then it's a bald assertion. So asserting that there is a finite amount of time, space, etc., well, we don't really know that that's correct. It's not quite what science says, so you're already being dishonest, at least to some degree. But simply to assert, oh, well, it had to have a start, you don't know that. So now you're asserting something that you don't know to be true and that you can't show to be true. You say, well, but Big Bang cosmology, well, yeah, but Big Bang cosmology stops at the singularity. We can't go before that or beyond that. So we don't know. And heck, before we even get that small, we stop knowing about how physics works because the universe is freaking small and hot. And we don't know what it would be like to be in a hot, small universe like that. We don't know what that would be. The scientists that understand this stuff go, we don't know. Physics that we know today, that we know how to apply, don't work in a really, really hot universe. Like some of them, the math just doesn't work because we don't know what it's like, because we can't simulate that sort of heat, because it's hotter than anything that we could possibly do. It's hotter than the sun. It's hotter than all the suns. It's the hottest thing that you can think of, and then it's more hot. And we have no idea what that's even like. Particles that we are used to being together aren't together because it's too damn hot. And if you don't think that that doesn't affect physics, well, you're just wrong. Yes, of course it would affect physics. Because if you don't have particles sticking together, then a lot of physics doesn't work anymore. But all of that will require a integrity to admit that we do not know. But what you do instead is say, no, we do know, and based on that assertion that we know, even though we don't know, then that therefore means we have to have an explanation of the beginning, that you don't know that we actually have a beginning, but we're going to assert that there is a beginning. Then we're going to say, well, how do we explain that beginning? It can't be X and Y and Z, and you're going to assert those without any proof that you somehow eliminated those as possibilities. And it has to be Z, Y, and B, and you're going to assert that without any proof or evidence at all. So it is a God of the gaps, period. That's all it's ever been. All the cosmological arguments at their core hinge upon that God itself isn't even an explanation yet, because you haven't proven God. And you can't prove God because God isn't a thing that's provable in a scientific manner. And if you want to go with pure philosophy, you need a system. Otherwise, you're just making stuff up. The only system I'm aware of in philosophy that could do it would be logic, formal and informal logic. And since we're using natural language, we're probably going to go with informal logic, which means looking at the argument. And your argument, of course, relies on the fact that there's a beginning to the universe, which is a fact that isn't even a fact. So your argument already fails before it gets off the ground. Fix your argument. If you're unwilling or unable to do that, then we have to be skeptical of your conclusion already, with premise one being that there's a beginning to the universe. We don't know that. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. We have no idea yet. But that's something we're going to figure out utilizing science, not pure philosophy. We can't just reason our way to an answer without evidence that the answer is a thing to get to. And God is not that sort of thing, and hasn't been. Period. Just that's how it is. Sucks to be you. Anyways, but yeah, it's also a God of gaps, more than likely.
Well, it can't be something physical because it sure seems that physical matter came into existence. It can't be something such as numbers, which are immaterial. It can't be nothing because literally nothing has no power, as you can't get something from nothing. So
numbers are not immaterial. I don't know. This is a Platoistic idea. There is no such, I don't know if there is a such thing as immaterial at all. Numbers are a concept of the brain, okay? Our brain is physical. So anything that comes from our idea is physical in that sense. It's not physical out there. Maybe that's what he's trying to say by that it's not physical or whatever, because there's no number one that you can grab onto and eat or whatever. There isn't, it's not, it's an idea. It's an abstract idea. But those abstract ideas are still grounded in the physical. So I wouldn't say that it's not physical. I'd just say it's an abstract idea that requires a brain to actualize it. As far as nothing goes, there's nothing that says that nothing can't do something. Because if you have a literal nothing, then you don't even have rules. And you should have at least one rule. No paradox allowed. But that's a rule. Once you have that rule, then you don't have a nothing anymore. Maybe nothing is impossible. I don't know. Or maybe you actually just have nothing to offer us, and so appeal to things that you couldn't possibly hope to know and say those things couldn't do it. How do you know? How do you know numbers couldn't do it? Because it doesn't, well, because they're abstract objects of the mind. Yeah? Why can't they do it? God's an abstract object of the mind. You think God made the universe? If God could do it, why can't numbers? Oh, God's actually real, but the numbers aren't.
What has the powers to bring a universe into existence that's
What has the powers to bring the universe into existence is assuming your conclusion already. You're assuming there is a what to bring about the state. So you're asserting in your question the idea that you wish to be produced. That is called a loaded question.
not material? That would be a timeless, spaceless, personal creator.
That does not follow, not even a little bit.
So this is not a God of the gaps argument.
It's worse than a God of the gaps argument. It has more fallacies. God of the gaps argument only has one fallacy. This argument has like, I don't know, 20? The one that you're presenting now, I lost count because you're asserting something that you don't know to be true. You're asserting there's the beginning of the universe. So that's already a bald assertion. There's one fallacy. Then based on that there's a beginning of the universe, you're saying, well, what could do that, which is a loaded question, so there's another fallacy. Then you're saying that the only thing that could do that is X, Y, and Z, which you couldn't possibly know that those were things, and all of those things don't follow. So you said, what, at least 3 different things, so that's now 5 fallacies at least. So yeah, it's not a God of the gaps argument, which would just be one fallacy. It's 5 fallacies at least. Good job! Your argument sucks even more.
It's actually appealing to something that we know has the causal powers to bring something like a universe into existence.
It's appealing to something that we know has causal powers. You don't know that God has causal powers. You're asserting that God has causal powers. You don't know that there's a God. You're asserting that there's a God. You don't know what God's like. You're asserting that God has powers at all. All of that is nothing but bald assertions. So what's that? 8 now? We're at 8 logical fallacies at least, and he didn't put this in syllogistic format, so I can't really properly analyze it. But that's more than enough fallacies, I would think. 8 fallacies. Your argument sucks.
Let's try another one.
Over the last 10,000 years of history, there's been about 10,000 different religions and roughly about 1,000 different gods. What is the probability that Yahweh is the one true God and Amun-Ra, Aphrodite, Apollo, and the other 986 gods are all false gods? You guys are atheists just like me. Of all the gods I just rattled off, some of us just go one God further.
This is something that I've heard many times, where there's kind of this idea that atheists will appeal to Christians and say, really, you're just an atheist like me. We just go one God further, as if it's not really a big deal. Just be consistent and go one God further. One way I'm not sure I totally buy this is if I thought about the difference between, say, somebody who's single and myself. If I said to somebody who's single, hey, we both reject all women, but I just have one more woman than you do, hence I'm married, as if that's not a big distinction, that would fail to understand the massive distinction between being single and between being married.
Remember when you broke down that analogy a while back from the atheist experience? Because you didn't find it to be a very good analogy. Well, you've produced an analogy here that I would like to break down, but it's so fundamentally broken and disconnected from whatever the bleep you were saying. I don't even know really where to start. Women are something that we have empirical evidence of, repeatable tests upon, actual evidence for. We know that women exist. The state of marriage and non-marriage is a concept that humanity has come up with and is a construct of society. So we know that that's a thing that we have labeled and created institutions around and about. Whether or not the government should be involved in that, or churches need to be involved in it, or whatever, who knows? That's a whole different discussion in and of itself. But nonetheless, the point is of this, which I guess you have to miss, is this is trying to get the Christian to understand what it is to be an atheist. All it is to, be consistent. You don't believe in all these other gods, and we don't believe in all those other gods and your God. That's just one step more. And it's not about you being consistent per se. It's about you understanding, being able to be in my shoes. Doesn't the Bible say something about if your neighbor asks you to walk a mile, walk 2 miles with them? So walk a couple miles with me and try to understand that this is to get you to understand kind of what it's like to be an atheist. The reasons that you object to all those other gods might be applicable to your God as well. Have you subjected your God to all the reasons that you object to those gods? Now, of course, if your reason to object to those gods is that, of course, they don't exist, your God said they don't exist. Well, that's not a very good reason at all, because it's not very reasonable. It's extraordinarily circular, and all the other gods could claim the same thing about you. So what is your argument that is valid and sound that's against all those other gods? And have you applied that argument to your own God? If not, why not? This is an attempt for you to understand what it might be like to be an atheist. You don't believe in those gods, and it doesn't bother you, not even a little bit. There's not a moment in the day that you think about, well, what if Zeus is real? Or what if Brahma hates me? Or what if Shiva the Destroyer comes and nukes us all? Because that was in the movie with the bomb, and the guy said it, and so she's really pissed off about that quote, and she's like, I'll show you, and so she releases a ton of atomic bombs. But none of that worries you. You don't investigate those other religions. You don't know hardly anything about those other deities. Why would you bother? Because you don't believe in them. And in a similar sense, we might not spend our time and energy investigating anything about your God. And you can call us lazy for doing so, but then you're going to have to call yourself lazy because you haven't investigated every other religion, every other God claim that's out there. And that's just the ones that we know about. Obviously, you can't investigate the ones we don't know anything about. But isn't that also a problem in the whole thing? God, for whatever reason, doesn't see fit to come and tell us humans which one of it is real. Why would God do that? I don't know. Every religion has a different answer for that, though. Your religion has its own answers for that. But none of these answers seem really to be anything more than humans grasping at straws from my skeptical point of view. Yeah, and you said you were responding to skeptics. These aren't skeptics. These are atheists. There's a difference. Come on, man.
But I think more germane to his point is he seems to be implying that the probability of the existence of the Christian God can be compared to all the tens of thousands of other gods. Now, if that was purely the standard, then I would agree with him that it's improbable. But it's not just Christianity versus other gods. It's actually Christianity versus all worldviews, including pantheism, including atheism. So Shermer's atheistic beliefs don't get off the hook here. This changes.
I just did a video of 7 things that you need to know. Obviously, he didn't see the video. Otherwise, he would know not to say this. He said one of the things I said not to do. Atheism isn't a worldview. It could be part of one, but in and of itself, it's not a worldview. And you're certainly implying, if not outright saying, that atheism is a worldview. But you're basically saying, well, Christianity is more than all those other religions, because it's not just versus all these gods, it's also against all these other worldviews. That's also true of the other religions, though. Nothing that you've said about your religion is unique or special, and I know Christians want it to be. Ours is the only one with a dying savior. Not true. Other religions have that, or aspects of it, or things like it. But even if you could find something that's uniquely yours, that doesn't mean that it's true or right or real. You're missing the point, and you're doing so deliberately. But let's listen to your straw man, I guess.
Use the parameters. On its surface, then they're all equally improbable on just a numbers game. That's why we have to look at the evidence. I'm a Christian compared to all these other gods and compared to atheism or any other naturalistic worldview, because I think the evidence points towards it actually being true.
Cool. So what's the evidence? What is the evidence? Not an argument, the evidence. What is it? You're gonna tell us, right? Right?
Let's look at another one.
What evidence? Wait, what evidence? What evidence? Why? Why? Oh, well.
Is God immoral to seemingly send somebody to hell if he hasn't given him enough evidence?
Yes.
So notice this isn't saying that hell in principle or judgment is immoral. It's immoral if there's not enough evidence. I actually think she's onto something. But where we differ is I think God has given very good evidence from creation.
Creation isn't. That's assuming that there's creation. You need to demonstrate creation. You can't just assert it. That's not evidence. You need to demonstrate it. That would be evidence. And let me just complain about the picture you threw up there real fast.
But where we differ is I think God has given very good evidence.
But obviously, she doesn't think that God's given good evidence. There's a problem there. Your God has failed her, but you don't recognize that. Wait, where's that picture? Give me that
From
picture.
creation.
There it is. Okay, let's look at this damn picture here for a moment. Let's see. You've got, I guess, Adam and Eve, who are white for some reason. Why are Adam and Eve always white? They should be black. Because we're all from Africa, damn it. At least get that right. Adam and Eve should be black. Now, do they have belly buttons or not? Can't tell. Picture's too damn small. But they shouldn't have belly buttons either. And why does Adam have nipples? Was he made with nipples? Because nipples are a result of the birthing process. So did God just build into Adam completely pointless nipples? Why would God do that? Anyways, then there's other animals all chilling out there. No kangaroo. I don't know. There's a turkey there. There's a horse. There's all these other things. All the animals that Adam tried to get with before he got with Eve, but they weren't a good match for him. And God's like, oh, I forgot to make you a woman. And then he makes them Eve. which is after Lilith, which may or may not be in your version of the Bible or belief system. But Lilith is an interesting thing, and I don't want Lilith to be left out. But anyways, my phone is binging at me. I don't know. Go, whatever. Okay, good. Do that. Whatever. Anyways, okay, whatever. Bings, I don't care. All right, what was I saying? Bings, that's right. The bings prove a binger. Wait, what? No, that's not what it is. Oh, right, creation. That's not evidence. You don't have a creation. You haven't demonstrably demonstrated creation. That picture is drawn. It's made up. It's not like that's like an artist's interpretation of the Garden of Eden, which, according to the Bible, unless this is all metaphor, there should be like a big old gate somewhere with a couple angels guarding it so that nobody can go in. Well, we've been around the world a few times, humanity has, and nobody has found those damn gates yet. I would think somebody would have found the gates, and there'd be a couple angels there, at least two, guarding it and be like, you can't go past these gates. This leads to the garden. You're not allowed. That would be good evidence right there, but nobody's ever found it. And we know from biology that Adam and Eve is completely impossible because genetics just doesn't work that way. So the story of Adam and Eve is a metaphor and didn't happen. It's also borrowed from other stories that are very similar at the same time. Most of the Bible seems to be kind of a ripoff of other stories that existed at the same time of its writing. But nonetheless, I think that we can safely categorize the Adam and Eve creation as mythology and not anything to do with fact or reality, which means it's not evidence, not even a little.
To the historical Jesus.
What historical Jesus? What are you talking about? Because the only thing that you have for Jesus is in the Christian Bible. That's it. All other mentions are about Christians who believe in Jesus long after Jesus was gone. So the problem is that you have a mythological figure that you can't really categorize as historical. Now, to compare and contrast, Napoleon is a historical figure. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that there is at least one thing that claim Napoleon did mythical stuff. I know for sure that happened with Caesar. So the Caesar that's mythical and the Caesar that's real would be two separate categories. And in fact, I'll cite something that I know for sure I can cite as an example. There's a movie, Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies. And what was the name of the movie? Let's see. Abe Lincoln versus Zombies. Let me get this up here. Oh, that's what it's called. It's called Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies. Yay! Then there's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter as well. Okay, so that, I would dare say, is a completely made-up telling about Abraham Lincoln because zombies and or vampires aren't a real thing. Those are mythological creatures that we've come up with. So if some point in the future there is a book or several books about Abraham Lincoln, and we have these books over here that are talking about how he fought the zombies and the vampires, and we have these books over here that don't include those elements. The historian, in the future historian that we're talking about, having no access to the data that we have today about Lincoln, has only those books to go on. And says, well, I don't know what the bleep of vampire is. I've never seen that at all. There's no evidence of vampires. I don't know what the bleep of zombie is. Never seen that either. No evidence of those things. So because that, I'm going to have to classify this as myth, and this would be the historical Abraham. Okay, but the problem for Jesus is The only thing you got is the myth. You don't got the historical Jesus, because the historical Jesus would be very mundane and boring. He wouldn't do magical feats and extraordinary things. And the only way for Jesus to become non-mythical would be to demonstrably demonstrate that miracles are even possible in the first place, which is something that you can't do. Whoops. Another thing that just you can't do, so you just go historical Jesus, as if that's really a thing, when it's not.
To the transformed lives of believers.
Really? The transformed lives of believers, which is true of every religion. It's not unique to yours. And it's true of atheism. People that deconvert, their lives change. That doesn't make it doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it true. People changing because they change their beliefs doesn't make the belief true or false. It doesn't tell us anything at all. Not even a little. None of the things you cited are even close to being evidence. Am I reacting enough? I'm not sure that I am. Hold on. Okay, there I did. Oh, I hurt my head, I think. Okay, all right. Back to the video.
So for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, there actually is good evidence that tells us that Christianity is true. Let's go to the
Hey, chat, do I have eyeballs? Do I have eyeballs? Anyone in chat, do I have eyeballs? Please let me know if I have eyeballs. If you're still in chat, I see there was a bunch of people in chat. Somebody tell me if I have eyeballs. Wait, do I have ears? Yeah, I got eyeballs and ears. Nobody in chat wants to tell me. Verify that I have eyeballs and ears, chat. I got eyeballs. There we go. Captain Desk pulls in for me with the eyeballs. Verify my ears. Do I have ears? I want to make sure that I have ears. Do I have ears? Pretty sure I have ears. Yes, I have eyeballs and ears. Okay, good. Chat has finally verified that I have eyes and ears to hear and see. Yet none of these things appear to be evidence to this skeptic, but that's just because I have a skeptical worldview, I guess.
The next.
Why do Christians always assume that their God is the only God that could exist, or that they'll be safe if they believe in him and he doesn't exist? I mean, when your life ends, it could be Anubis who meets you for all we know, and he could very much feed your heart to Amit for having a false sense of superiority simply for your religious beliefs and using dumb takes like this to justify it. Then you could be wandering restlessly in Duat for all of eternity, while all the people you sent to hell experience paradise in Nauru, because they weren't self-righteous with dumb takes. And like I said, no one deserves eternal torture simply for not believing in or obeying a particular god. And any god who thinks so is a cruel narcissist who is not deserving of worship.
All right, so the question of hell aside, that would take a little bit more time to unpack. One thing I sense is that she is turned off by a lot of self-righteous Christians.
No. Focus on the main thing, no matter how long it takes, okay? That is central to the problem here. But, I mean, you're doing a quick React video that's only 9 minutes long. Whereas I'm doing a React video that is the opposite of quick, but I'm going to call it a short video when I tell him that I responded to his video. I always tell people that I make short videos because it's funny. What was I saying? Oh, right. So, yeah, what are you going to do if it's some other god? You're still screwed. So the take that she was referring to is, I'd rather believe and be wrong than die and be wrong. And that is a bad take, because you shouldn't base your idea of what will happen based on your idea of what happens when you die. And certainly it's not a good argument. In fact, hell would be an ad ballum. If there's a hell, then God is threatening people with it, which would be an ad ballum, which would be a logical fallacy. Now, humans can do logical fallacies all they want. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I don't think that a God or anything deserving to be called a God would make a logical fallacy at all. Now, maybe you don't believe in hell because it's not in the Bible. But maybe instead you believe in heaven. Well, okay, fine. But if heaven is a reward, then it is a potential appeal to bribery. If you believe, you get this great thing, which is a logical fallacy of appeal to bribery. So there has to be some other theology that you would have to then invoke to avoid those potential fallacies, unless you're okay with your God being illogical. But if God's illogical, then, well, why do you trust God at all? But he's going to avoid all that and complain about that he doesn't like self-righteous Christians.
And let me tell you, many times as we as Christians can be self-righteous. So when I see a video like this, this is a pause and reminder to me that Jesus criticizes those who are self-righteous and to try to not be that person. Now,
yeah, I love Christians and self-righteousness. I mean, just, hey, how's it going? Hey, I'm a Christian. Oh, okay. Yeah. If you don't believe in my God, you're going to hell. I'm not self-righteous, though. Anyways, yeah. Anyway.
With that said, it's not that Christians say Christianity is the only possible religion that can be true. It's not.
Yes, they do.
Not about possibility. I'm happy to concede that I could be wrong. I give a talk on truth and I make the point at the end. I say all religions could be false, but they can't possibly all be true. Christianity.
Well, maybe. Maybe not. Now, maybe you think mistakenly that the Judeo-Christian God doesn't allow for other gods to exist, but actually it does. Make me your God above the other gods. It's in there. So other gods can certainly exist, but Christianity tends to want it to be that it's a all or none. That it's a, if you believe this, then you're fine, and if you don't, you're screwed, which means only about 33% of the world is fine. Actually, less than that, because not even all Christians are guaranteed salvation according to the Bible. You'll hear from me, depart, I know you not. So even if you said, but I said, Lord, Lord, and I called out to you and I worked for you, it's like, no, you won't hear that. If you're not good enough for God, you still don't make it. But anyways, I'm glad that you concede that you could be wrong, but it's interesting that you're saying that doesn't matter? What? Oh, they can't all be true. Right. Well, no, they couldn't all be true simultaneously. Some of them could be true and others could be false, but they also could be true in parts and not in other parts. So see, you could have a religion that has some aspects that are true and some aspects that are false. So could it be that Christianity is also a religion that has some things that are true and some things that are false? Yes. Actually, not only could it be, but that's how it actually is, if you'd bothered to do any research about Christianity. But why would we do that? Unless we're some sort of skeptic or something.
False, but they can't possibly all be true. Christianity could be false.
Yeah.
So Christians should not act like it's not possible that we're mistaken. The question is not possibility. The question is probability. So I don't see any good evidence that Anubis or these other gods are actually real.
Oh, well, of course there's good new evidence for Anubis. First of all, we have the fact of creation. Then we have the historical Anubis. And third, we have the transformed lives of those who believe in Anubis. Yeah, you literally dropped my microphone.
Or I would believe in them. But I see very good evidence that Jesus claimed to be God and did miracles.
Where exactly did Jesus claim to be God in the Bible? Because I think you only have one verse, and it's a stretch that Jesus is actually claiming to be God. And maybe you could pull a few other verses and try to make it seem like Jesus is claiming to be God, but he never outright just says, I'm God. Also, isn't the Son subservient to the Father, making the Father God more powerful than the Jesus God? I don't know how any of that works, but anyways, whatever.
And rose on the third day. Thus, if that is true, his words and teachings about eternal life, including hell, are things I think we ought to take seriously. Let's just not be self-righteous about it. Good reminder from her. Hey, thanks for watching. This is totally an experiment. The first time we've done this, rolling straight through with all the videos. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you want me to do more of this on the channel, if you have ideas to do it better, we're trying new stuff out here to try to serve you. So let us know what you think.
Okay, well, I did by doing this video is what I think about your video. So I guess what I'll put in the comments on your video is, hey, I did a short, with quotes around it, video response to your video. Check it out. And then, like, I posted that. Let me show you where that I posted it, so you know that I'm, that I did that. Because I mean, I just said that I did that. I like to show that I do stuff, So yeah, see, all right. So now, if you don't see that comment, then YouTube, I don't know, censored it or whatever. Sort by newest. Okay, that's what evidence. See, look, like, where did my comment go? I did a response to this. Check it out. Is it like censored because I said video? Okay, so there it is. Let's just see if it disappears again. There we go. All right, there. Now it's there. It should be there. So, hey, you guys, girls, robots, etc. out there that are watching right now, whenever it is you're watching, comment on his video to check out my video about this video. All right, there's the door knocking. So I better go. This has been Deconverted Man reacting to a React video. Next time I'll react to the reactors, and there will be nuclear reactors, and then that will react, and we'll have a reaction about it. See you then.